Lawson Naidoo, Chairperson of the Board of Directors at SA Cricket, joins me now. A lot's been said, mulled over the last 48 hours following that Cricket SA press statement that David Teeger has been removed as the under-19 captain. Lawson, he still remains a member of the squad. Cricket SA says this is not necessarily to do with statements that he made at a Rising Star of Jewish Achiever Awards in November, but got to do with security concerns over his position as captain. What exactly are those security concerns? Lawson, good morning.
Good morning, Lester. Thank you very much. Before we get to the security concerns, Lester, I think it's important to separate the two distinct processes that have happened. So as a result of David's initial comments, which were made in October, we received complaints as CSA in November last year. We then instituted an independent inquiry chaired by Advocate Vem Trengrove, which found that David had not transgressed the CSA codes of conduct. And we, as Cricket South Africa, accepted that independent expert opinion and moved on. What has happened now is that in the interim, South Africa was granted the rights to host the Under-19 World Cup, with the event having been moved from Sri Lanka at very short notice. And as part of the preparations for this tournament, we received a security briefing early last week, which indicated that, given the rising tensions both domestically and globally around the war in Gaza, as well as the protests that we'd seen at Newlands Cricket Stadium a couple of weeks ago, that there was an increasing risk of protests and disruptive protests at games during this ICC World Cup. So it's in the context of those security assessment that was made available to us on a confidential basis that Cricket South Africa had to apply its mind and try and ameliorate the situation, which is not to suggest that we don't want protests to happen. The protests are part of South African democratic culture. We see it across the country on a daily basis. But for those protests to take place peacefully, and for the focus of attention not to be on David as an individual, and to try and remove him from being the spotlight of those protests, but and allow them to take place with people expressing their views on the war in Gaza.
Does that not capitulate to the threats of protest? If there is a credible threat, and as I read Cricket SA's statement, which also said could result in conflict or even violence, including between rival groups of protesters, isn't that then capitulating to the mere threat of violence?
Well, Lester, the first point is when we receive a security briefing from the experts in the field, it's not our position as Cricket South Africa to try and second-guess them or to tell them how to do their jobs. We've got to take that information at face value and see what it is that we can try and do within our realm to try and assist them to manage those risks. And we felt by taking the focus away from David, it would be in the best interest of the tournament, of all of the teams participating, especially the South African team, as well as of David himself, to allow him, or the spotlight hopefully, to be removed from him somewhat. We're not naive enough to think that he's still not going to be the focus of some of those protests, but to allow him to continue to play an important role that he does within the team.
Could you acknowledge and appreciate that there is already a theory about that Cricket SA largely is unhappy with Vim Trengrove's report that says that David Teeger did not violate any code of conduct. He is protected under freedom of speech and protection. And whether it be through South African commentators, whether it be international commentators, which I've read a lot about, even Piers Morgan stepping into this. I'm not one to watch Piers Morgan. I'm told by a listener that he's even commented. Can Cricket South Africa at least see that there could be a theory that CSA is unhappy with the Tremgrove report and is still unhappy with the comments of David Teeger in October, and therefore it's the reason that you've stripped him of the captaincy.
No, I think that is entirely an entirely mischievous linkage of two separate issues. As I said at the beginning, we instituted the Tremgrove inquiry. We accepted the outcome of that inquiry. This is not some form of a retrospective sanction being imposed on David. We accepted that and moved on. We are now being presented with a set of information that requires us to apply our minds to this. And how do we, as Cricket South Africa, as the custodians of the game in this country, as hosts of this ICC Under-19 tournament, manage things in a way that minimizes the risk of disruption to the game? And that's the nub of it. So these are two separate issues. And when considering this matter, we did not in any way reflect upon the Tremgrove report. We simply looked at the facts of the security assessment that had been provided to us.
Lawson, I really appreciate your time, Chairperson of the Board of SA Cricket.